This episode is an overview of Indian cuisine. We'll be focusing mainly on the Mughal Empire period, looking at some of the key features and changes in Indian food. Making these videos isn't easy, so if you, our viewers and friends, feel that the video is pretty good, we hope you'll lend us a hand and show your support. Your kindness means the world to us, and I, from behind the screen, want to thank you in advance. The Muslim invasion of the Indian subcontinent was a long process. As early as the 8th century AD, Muslims had already entered Afghanistan and Pakistan. After that, their influence gradually expanded, and by the 16th century, it reached its peak during the Mughal Empire. Their territory covered almost the entire Indian subcontinent. This, of course, had a huge impact on India's food culture. But even before the Mughal dynasty, there was actually a Muslim traveler who had journeyed all over India on his own 2 feet. From his perspective, he recorded every aspect of India at that time. Our story today begins with him. Ibn Battuta's full name is... why don't you just read it yourself? He was born in 1304 in Morocco, in Tangier, to a Berber family. In a way, you could say he was the greatest explorer on the planet. This guy, all by himself, spent 30 years on foot, traveling through almost all of Africa and Eurasia. He passed through 44 countries, with a total journey of about 117,000 kilometers. That's roughly the equivalent of 5 Marco Polos, and he also reached China during the Yuan dynasty. His life's journey was later recorded in a book titled The Travels of Ibn Battuta. Since Ibn Battuta lived in India for a full 9 years, his book recorded a lot about India at the time, the customs and styles of the time. When it came to food, he mentioned in his book that by that time in India, a number of people had given up eating pork. Meanwhile, the Indian upper class was always indulging in all sorts of banquets, big and small. This was, you could say, pretty much identical to medieval Europe. It seems that in an age without internet or palaces, banquets were the kind of pastime that really served as a social gathering, combining all the functions of eating, drinking, and having fun. The book also says that at the banquets of the time, the nobility were already accustomed to drinking wine freely. And after the meal, they would commonly chew on a type of leaf to freshen up. Furthermore, Ibn Battuta specifically expressed his love for a dessert called halwa. Halwa is a dessert with a simple process, but it's very time-consuming. The method is to take starchy grain flour, add water, and then continuously heat it. Once it becomes thick, you add a large amount of sugar, and then mix in ghee and crushed nuts, followed by constant stirring. Finally, it's taken off the heat and poured into a mold. After it cools and sets, it's cut into blocks to eat. Since they used unrefined sugar back then, the halwa would turn a beautiful red color. Nowadays, when using white sugar, people usually add food coloring to get that traditional red. After Ibn Battuta left, the Muslim influence in India grew year after year. After the Tughlaq, Sayyid, and Lodi dynasties, India welcomed the rule of the renowned Mughal dynasty. With the arrival of the Mughal dynasty, Persian and Afghan food also began to appear on a large scale in northern India. If you had to give a high-level summary of the food from this period, then korma and biryani would have to be at the top of the list. To be honest, I'm still not entirely sure if korma is the name of a specific dish, or if it's a general term for a bunch of dishes made using the same cooking method. Basically, korma is just stewing anything and everything in a masala paste. You can be pretty spontaneous when you make it. The key is to mix yogurt with freshly ground masala powder. You heat the mixture to create a paste, and then you just add whatever ingredients you want that you have on hand. It can be meat or veggies, a little or a lot. After the masala infuses the ingredients with its aroma, the yogurt cooks it all down into a thick sauce. That's really the soul of the dish. As for pilaf, it has tons of names in South Asia today, like pilaf's biryani and so on. But the one with the most history is probably the local Indian name pulao. This word is said to come from Sanskrit, and it just means rice and meat. There's a theory about pilaf that says it actually originated in India. During Alexander the Great's invasion of India, the Greeks supposedly brought it all the way back with them and spread it throughout Central Asia. And this might not just be a wild story, because even in modern-day Greece, pilaf is actually a very common dish. And even though its name in some languages implies eating with your hands, Greeks eat it with a spoon. This is pretty good proof that it's a foreign cuisine to them. Ironically, it became way more popular outside of its home country. That little seed of pilaf that the Greeks unintentionally spread to Central Asia actually sprouted and grew into a giant tree. After evolving, it became the most iconic rice dish in Central Asia. Eventually, with the establishment of the Mughal Empire, it returned to its old home in India. And because the founding emperor, Babur, absolutely loved pilaf, the trend started from the top and spread downwards. So pilaf quickly conquered Indian dinner tables all over again. This is similar to many dynasties in China. The wealthiest and most legendary figures of the Mughal dynasty were its first three emperors. In a way, you can compare them to the three generations of the Cao family. The one playing the role of Cao, conquering lands in every direction. To establish the empire was Babur, a descendant of Genghis Khan and Timur. He was a classic Turkified Mongol. He inherited the throne at just 11 years old. Surrounded by enemies, he had to fight for his throne, overcoming incredible odds to conquer the land. He finally ended the Delhi Sultanate's 320-year rule in India and established the Mughal Empire. But just 4 years after his empire was secured, Babur passed away. He died in the capital city of Agra. Now, this guy, aside from his love for a good pilaf, was, you could say, pretty dissatisfied with the local Indian food culture. He was always complaining to his attendants that India didn't have the cantaloupes he loved or any high-quality grapes. He even complained that the palace had no cool, fresh spring water. Basically, the founder of this dynasty was unhappy with almost everything native to India. But there was one thing he really loved, a nut called chiranji. Its flavor is somewhere between an almond and a walnut, and you can eat it raw. But it's usually used as a spice. After being roasted, it's added to all sorts of desserts, or ground up to add flavor and aroma to sauces. Besides that, Emperor Babur also publicly praised Indian fish. He complimented the flavor of the fish, saying it was delicious and didn't have many bones, which made it really pleasant to eat. But as for what specific kind of fish he was praising, that's been lost to history. Because in India today, there are hardly any fish dishes. Indians believe that the fish in the Ganges River feed on living by eating ashes. That's why eating fish is an antidote for a king's soul. After the great Emperor Babur, it was Humayun who took the throne. Much like the Chinese Emperor Cao Pi, he was a ruler with grand ambitions but lacked the skill to achieve them. And his life was full of hardships. He was even less successful than Cao Pi, who returned in defeat from his 3 campaigns against Eastern Wu, because Humayun, after being defeated by the ruler Sher Shah, was even forced to flee to Iran. He lost his entire empire. It was only with the support of the Persians, and after a great deal of effort, that he managed to fight his way back to Delhi and regain power. During the most critical period of his war to reclaim the throne, Humayun once vowed to not eat meat for several months. Perhaps he was hoping his piety would move the heavens and grant him some kind of divine power-up. In any case, he eventually defeated his enemies as he had hoped. So to show his gratitude to the divine spirits who helped him clinch the victory, he issued a decree declaring that beef was an impious food. And just like that, by going with the flow, he ended up providing a second reinforcement to India's custom of not eating beef. But ironically, the very next year, this guy had an accident while riding his horse and fell to his death. In Chinese terms, you could say his fate was crushed by the weight of his own name. After Humayun's death, his son Akbar took the throne. Now, this guy was truly incredible. He's considered the greatest emperor of the Mughal dynasty. His counterpart, the somewhat eccentric Emperor Cao Rui, was also considered skilled at governing and the art of checks and balances. But when it came to military achievements, he was nowhere near Akbar's level. The territory of the Mughal Empire under his rule expanded to more than 3 times its size. Furthermore, Akbar understood very well that the peace and stability of the empire came from the acceptance of its people. For that reason, he made a series of religious compromises. He was also personally happy to immerse himself in the culture of the native Indian people. In this tradition, it was to gain the trust of the native Indian people and their affection for the Mughal emperor. This also laid the foundation for the multiculturalism of the Mughal Empire. During the reign of Akbar the Great, many new recipes were created. He himself was quite particular about his diet and would stop eating meat during certain periods. And during these periods of vegetarianism, he would eat according to a diet called Sufiyana. This diet was completely meat-free. Instead, the staple food was a dish called Khichdi. Basically, Khichdi is kind of like what we call a rice stew, except it has a higher water content, making the final result much stickier. Its main ingredients are various types of lentils and rice. To make it, you first stir-fry scallions, ginger, and onions. Then you sprinkle in masala and add the rice. Add a generous amount of water, and after a slow simmer, it's done. Even though it looks like a pile of mush as usual, you have to admit this stuff is definitely easy to digest and nutritious, a healthy meal. And on the days he wasn't eating vegetarian, Akbar the Great's favorite food was halim. This is a dish where you first stew lamb with chili peppers for a long time, and then add wheat flour, cinnamon cloves, and various other spices, even flower petals, and continue to simmer it down. In India today, it's still a major festival food for Muslims during Ramadan. Because of the long cooking time and constant stirring, the muscle fibers of the lamb completely break down and eventually blend with the wheat. And the starch from the wheat, in turn, makes the dish incredibly thick, tightly locking in the flavor of every single spice. Before it's served, they also add various types of lentils, ground into a paste as well as milk. So you can just imagine how nutritious it is. As for taste, it gets a perfect score. And hey, that's not just me saying it. This is according to a guy named James, also Akbar the Great when he ate, liked to spice things up with a bit of harissa. This seemingly minor detail actually contains a lot of information because Columbus discovered the Americas at the end of the 15th century, and Akbar lived in the mid-16th century. That means in less than 50 years, chili peppers had already reached India. After Akbar the Great, most rulers of the Mughal dynasty were pretty mediocre. As the saying goes, a family's greatness is lost by the third generation. The fourth Mughal emperor, who was just coasting on his father's legacy, Jahangir, is a classic example. Besides his scandalous affair with his queen Nur Jahan, he had no real accomplishments in civil or military matters to speak of. The most famous thing about Jahangir is probably that he had a son named Shah Jahan, and his son was a real chip off the old block, perfectly inheriting his father's passions for his third wife Mumtaz Mahal. He built the Taj Mahal, one of the 7 wonders of the world. During the reigns of these 2 romantic emperors, a court dessert called Kulfi became a favorite among the entire upper class. You could say Kulfi is the ancient version of ice cream. Just from its appearance, we can say for sure that over 700 years ago, absolutely nobody could have turned this thing down. Kulfi's main ingredient is milk that's been slowly heated for a long time. During the heating process, you have to add various expensive spices, including saffron. After that, various starches and powders were probably added to thicken it. Finally, it's poured into a mold to cool, and once it's removed, you have an ancient version of a creamy popsicle. The ingredients for this are actually pretty simple. So theoretically, if you left out the expensive spices, even regular families should have been able to afford it. But cooling it from the inside out was enough to stump most people. They didn't have refrigerators back then, So if you wanted to get the kulfi to freeze solid, just think about it in a place like India. How much work would that take? So you could say it was through and through a top-tier delicacy for the nobility. So if you ever get the chance to taste this amazing treat, don't forget to let your imagination take flight. Imagine hundreds of years ago, the clever hostesses and those graceful ladies of the court glistening like pearly lotus flowers on a hot summer day, their makeup perfectly set, holding a kulfi and raising it to their ruby lips, savoring its sweet fragrance with a gentle smile. Okay, I gotta stop. We've been going on about India for way too long, and freaking curry hasn't even made an appearance yet. Then again, it is India we're talking about. Their food culture is just so darn rich. If we keep going on like this, I'll probably have to. In my little notebook, I have all these requested topics, and I've already written down almost 30 of them. So we have to speed things up. The next episode will be the last one on Indian cuisine. After that, we're moving on to a new place. It's a big world out there with so many new things to see.